What if I told you there is a fruit designed with such biological perfection that it comes pre-wrapped in its own biodegradable packaging? You can leave it sitting in a basket and store it in a cool room for up to 3 months. And when you peel it open, it is as fresh, juicy, and sweet as the day it fell from the vine. It requires no pesticides to grow. It tastes like an impossible combination of pineapple, vanilla, and cherry tomato. And it packs a nutritional punch that makes the apple look like sugared water. Yet you likely won't find it in the produce section of Kroger or Whole Foods. If you do, it will be sold as a luxury garnish, labeled as an exotic superfood. But the truth is far stranger. This isn't some rare import from a distant jungle. For centuries, this plant was a staple of the American garden. It fed the pioneers, the Amish, and the indigenous tribes of this continent through the harshest winters. But in the 1950s, it effectively vanished. It was erased from the American diet, and it was abandoned because of a trait that the industrial food machine could not tolerate. This is the story of the ground cherry, the fruit that taught early Americans how to survive, and why the invention of the combine harvester turned a pantry staple into a roadside weed. Welcome to Ancestral Yields. If you believe that the best food is not always found in the grocery store aisle, and you want to uncover the lost crops of history, make sure to like this video and subscribe. We are digging up the past to feed the future, and we want you growing right alongside us. To understand this plant, we have to look back before the modern borders of North and South America were drawn. The ground cherry, scientifically known as Physalis pruinosa, and its close relative Physalis peruviana, are native to the Americas. Long before Columbus set foot on these shores, indigenous peoples were cultivating Physalis. It was a staple of the Incan Empire in the Andes, revered not just for its flavor, but for its resilience. As trade routes moved north, the plant found a willing home in North American soil. When European settlers arrived, they discovered this plant and quickly realized its value. For the pioneers pushing westward, sugar was a luxury. It was heavy, expensive, and hard to transport. But the ground cherry was naturally sweet, with a high pectin content that made it perfect for jams and pies without needing mountains of imported cane sugar. By the 1800s, it was a superstar of the homestead. In 1837, seed catalogs were proudly selling Aunt Molly's ground cherry, a variety developed by Polish immigrants in Pennsylvania. It became known as Amish candy or pioneer's candy. In a world without refrigeration, a fruit that could sit in a root cellar inside its own husk for months was a miracle. It was the winter fruit. It was the taste of summer preserved in a papery lantern when the snow was 3 feet deep outside. So, what happened? The decline began in the mid-20th century, as American agriculture shifted from the family garden to industrial monoculture. Farms grew larger, labor became more expensive, and the tractor replaced the human hand. The ground cherry has a specific growing habit. It ripens over a long season, dropping a few berries at a time. That pattern makes it a poor fit for mechanized harvest. It requires a human to walk the rows, kneel down, and gather the harvest. But the new industrial model demanded once-over harvesting. Farmers wanted a crop they could strip in a single day with a machine. Tomatoes were bred to have tough skins and stay on the vine until a mechanical shaker ripped them off. The ground cherry, with its delicate texture and independent timeline, was declared inefficient. By the 1970s, it had been relegated to weed status in Midwestern cornfields, sprayed with herbicides to make room for crops that behaved predictably. But when we walked away from the ground cherry, we did not just lose a pie filling. We walked away from a nutritional powerhouse that puts our modern fruit bowl to shame. The ground cherry is a member of the Solanaceae family, the nightshades. That makes it a cousin to the tomato and the tomatillo. But unlike the tomato, which is exposed to the elements, the ground cherry develops a calyx, a papery husk that grows around the fruit. This is a biological shield that allows the fruit to breathe while protecting it from insects, bacteria, and mold. It creates a sterile microenvironment for the berry. Inside that lantern is a chemical profile that reads more like a pharmacy than a fruit. Unlike tomatoes, ground cherries contain compounds called withanolides, specifically withanolide A. These are steroidal lactones, similar to the active ingredients in ashwagandha. They act as adaptogens, compounds that help the body manage physical and chemical stress. Current research is even looking into their potential anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory properties. But let's talk about the hard numbers, because this is where the ground cherry embarrasses the apple. First, let's talk about niacin, or vitamin B3. This is critical for healthy blood circulation and DNA repair. A standard apple contains about 0.09 milligrams of niacin per 100 grams. That is roughly a small apple. The ground cherry contains approximately 2.8 milligrams per 100 grams, or about 3/4 of a cup. To get the same amount of niacin from apples, you would have to eat 30 apples. You are getting a medicinal dose of B vitamins in a handful of berries. Then there is vitamin A. We are told to eat carrots and tomatoes for beta-carotene. A standard tomato has about 833 international units of vitamin A per 100 grams. The ground cherry is right on its heels with roughly 720 international units. And we can't forget vitamin C. Depending on the variety, ground cherries pack between 11 and 20 milligrams per 100 grams. That is nearly 20% of your daily value in a small snack serving, without the intense acidity of citrus fruits that can bother sensitive stomachs. It is a multivitamin that tastes like tropical candy. So, if it's so good, why isn't it in every lunchbox in America? The ground cherry has a biological trait called abscission. When the fruit reaches peak physiological ripeness, when the sugars are highest and the nutrients are maximized, the plant severs the connection to the stem and the fruit falls. The husk protects the fruit on the forest floor until an animal comes along to disperse the seeds. But to the modern industrial food safety system, this is a nightmare. Under current good agricultural practices and food safety laws, produce that touches the ground is often considered contaminated or cull. The very name ground cherry is a liability. Large-scale distributors do not want to deal with the risk of soil contact. Furthermore, the husk is a logistical annoyance for the supermarket. It takes up volume. It hides the fruit, so the consumer cannot see if it is ripe without opening it. And removing the husk, a process called husking, is delicate work. You cannot toss these berries into a giant industrial tumbler without bruising them. So we traded a shelf-stable, nutrient-dense berry for commercial varieties like raspberries and strawberries that turn to mush in your refrigerator in 3 days. However, for the backyard gardener and the homesteader, the ground cherry is the ultimate cheat code. This plant offers something almost no other garden crop can: true food security without electricity. If you harvest ground cherries and leave them in their husks, they last up to a week or two at room temperature. Store them in a cool, well-ventilated environment and they will stay fresh for 3 to 4 months. And growing them? It's embarrassingly easy. They thrive in poor soil. They need less water than tomatoes, and they self-seed aggressively. If you miss just one berry in your garden this year, you will likely have a volunteer crop next year. It is a plant that wants to feed you. The flavor profile is the final reward. It has high sugar levels, up to 15% Brix, which rivals the sweetest grapes. But it is balanced with earthy, savory notes from its tomato lineage. You can use it in a salsa just as easily as you can churn it into ice cream. However, a word of caution is required before you head out to forage. In the wild, it has dangerous lookalikes, most notably horse nettle. While horse nettle produces similar-looking yellow berries, they lack the distinct loose papery lantern that fully encloses the ground cherry, and the plant is often covered in sharp spines. Mistaking the two can be dangerous. Furthermore, even the true ground cherry demands patience. Never eat the berry if it is green, like a green potato, unripe. Ground cherries contain high levels of solanine, a toxin that can cause severe cramping and digestive distress. The fruit is only safe to eat when it turns golden orange and the husk is papery and dry, because the difference can be subtle to the untrained eye. The safest way to get these in your garden is to buy certified seeds and plant them yourself. You usually cannot buy seedlings at Home Depot. You will need to start from seed. Look for Aunt Molly's or Cossack pineapple varieties from heirloom seed suppliers like Baker Creek or Seed Savers Exchange. Treat them like a tomato. Start the seeds indoors about 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. Plant them outside once the soil is warm. They are low-growing, sprawling bushes, so give them some space. And then, just wait. When the husks turn brown and paper dry and fall to the ground, they are ready. The story of the ground cherry is a lesson in patience. It is a fruit of humility. It does not scream for attention with bright colors. It hides its gold inside a humble brown wrapper. But for those willing to look past the industrial standard, it offers a taste of the past and a nutrient profile for the future. It is time to stop buying plastic-wrapped berries that rot in the car on the way home. It is time to grow the berry that comes in its own biodegradable wrapper. If you are ready to fill your garden with crops that history forgot, but the soil remembers, hit that subscribe button for more ancestral yields. We have more forgotten vaults to open and plenty more seeds to sow. See you in the garden.